run the sweeper, and he kept the sink all, dishes done up, the table cleaned off. He's real
He keeps
good.
it pretty well cleaned up there.
Yes, he cleaned up things good. He was good work. I figure he does most cooking now. 8 o'clock, I set up. I don't want to go to at least 10 for it to take a pill. Take a heart pill.
Didn't he give you a shot at night?
Huh?
That you have to take insulin at night?
No.
Oh.
No, I don't take it. I did years ago for a long time, but I don't now.
Well, I was thinking you took it night and morning.
Yeah, I take it in the morning, but I have to take a heart pill at night, take it around 10. Take one when I eat supper, and then I take one. I don't want to take it too close together.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to bed because I did get up here at 5:36 when Noah was ill.
Yeah.
And Noah didn't always, he got so he didn't get up either. And Kurska yelled at him one morning. Well, he gets up and he does his exercise, you know. He does that. He has to do that every day for his back. Well, anyway, he didn't. He got so he didn't have to get up so early. But we got getting up around 6 on account of him. Or we thought we did. We didn't have to. Well, they lead a different life. We never knew who would be there. Dad, somebody be downstairs, and Dad to have them come up to eat. One thing we cooked a lot was potatoes sliced up with water and butter and salt and pepper on them, and tomatoes. Well, here come him, bring the school teachers up there. First, they just come down and no place to go, and he just invited them up to our house. Always somebody. We never knew when we went to get a meal who'd be there. How many? Yeah.
What would your mother say?
Well, that was my stepmother. That's after my mother died. Well, she had to go along with us. She wasn't there to help do it because she's at the store. She'd get up and go in the morning, and we'd have all the dishes to do, and after breakfast, and washing to do, and I don't know how we did it. We had a girl that helped us, but she finally left, and I had to do. And the girls, Helen Mildred or Helen Avestan would go to the store every morning, and they'd stay there time for school, and then they'd take off for school. And Juanita never did want to help do dishes or anything. She never wanted to help. Bribe her and everything else to get her help. Anything they could do, they'd take the cow to the pasture field to get out of work. Anything they could do. And when they were little, they were going to go to the woods to live, take a chicken, and they were taking spices, might I wasn't in, I was older, I wasn't in on that, but they still, when they get together, talk about that. Moving to the woods. Taking a chicken. Think of more things to do, more things to get out of work. There was always work all the time. Goodness. Mom would go to the store, give us a whole list of stuff to do. We had to clean the cupboards every week, put papers in them.
Every week?
Oh, yes. Well, we put papers in them, and then sometimes the glasses weren't dry.
Yeah.
They turned the glasses upside down. And the way we washed, we had a tub. And then we had some kind, you set on the stove, and you put your clothes in it, and you turned it. And you boiled those clothes.
Ah,
Oh dear, and then you put them back in the tub.
yeah. What a job.
Oh, what a job. You
Just
washed
doing
them.
laundry was,
I
Yes,
said,
you washed them first, then you put on the board, then you put them in this contraption, and you put on the stove and heat them, and then you put them back in and rinsed them. And then if you hung them on the line, they got stiff as
oh,
boards.
yeah. It's stiff. Wouldn't that be something else, stiff those things?
Yes. Oh, of course, people didn't change their clothes like they
No.
did now.
They sure didn't.
But we had tablecloths to iron,
Everything.
everything. You had to iron everything.
towels,
Towels too, yes.
Towels, sheets,
underwear.
underwear.
Underwear and everything.
We ironed it all.
Yes.
Only thing we didn't iron the socks. About the only thing we didn't iron.
Well, I don't think we did either. I couldn't.
Dad's underwear all had to be ironed. Sheets and pillowcases and all starched stiff. And,
Oh, everything had to be starched. Dad wore his shirts starched, white shirts. Oh, they would get filthy, and then we had to wash them on the board.
Yeah.
What was he doing while she was watching the store?
Huh?
What did he do while Grandma was
Well,
watching the
he
store?
carried mail most of the time. He'd go to McCallsville with the mail, and when
Horse and buggy?
yes, he went halfway when he got a truck and left the truck over there in the wintertime at Muttenberg. He'd leave the truck, and then he'd take the horses over and put them in the barn and get that truck and go down.
One thing about it, evidently you always had plenty of food and everything, didn't
Yes, you had plenty of food. We did.
you?
West people didn't have
Yeah.
food. There was people that didn't have it, but we always did because we had a store. But there was people that didn't eat beans and potatoes.
Yeah.
Yes. The Sealocks were the poorest people we knew, and they didn't. He worked for the day and probably only got $1 a day. They were poor. Hardly had clothes enough to cover them. Yes. And the Willies, I don't think they were so poor, but they were so stingy and tight. And that Glenna never had a doll, so Avis felt sorry for her. I don't know where she got the doll, unless she stole it out of the store. And she gave her the doll. And to that girl's dying day, she remembered
Isn't it
about
something?
Avis giving her the doll. You know, they had money enough to buy one, but they were that tight with their money. Both of them were tight. The old man, woman, both. And Avis, and the girls would get, we had the cream, separate the cream to get the butterfly out. And then you used, what was it you used to put in and to separate that to find out how much butterfat was in it? Well, it would eat your hose if you spilled any of that on it. And our hose was always, and the girls put black shoe polish on them so it wouldn't show. Black hose, yes. Yeah, we
You got
had,
white,
huh?
they were white on the black.
No, they were black hose,
Yeah,
and then
you got
your leg would show through, so
Oh.
they
They
put
put like shoe polish on their
shoe
leg.
polish
Eat a
on their
hole
leg.
through the sock.
Yeah. And another thing funny, I kind of think I know how it got that way. We had one room up upstairs, was no windows out. So Dad and Mom put 2 beds in there, and we 5 girls slept in them that one room. Well, it had no light in there, and we had clothing hanging. I guess we had I was thinking about it the other night. I think we had a place to hang our clothes. So that got a fire. So one of them went down and told Dad, "Dad, the house is on fire." Dad said, "You sit down there and be quiet." And he's always doing that. "Yes, but Dad, the house is on fire." And so I tell you, everybody took out of there and went to the house. And they got it out. But what I think it was, somebody was in there with a match trying to find their clothes and got to fire.
Yeah.
Got their clothes afire. Dad was always telling me, sit down and be
down.
quiet. He said, "Sit down and be quiet." He said, "Dad, the That's true. Avis can tell you that. Oh. So everybody in the store took out of there to put the fire out. And then the schoolhouse one time got a fire. It was a Grange Hall, and the flue got a fire, and Dad took a big ladder and put up there and put water, got out. Well, we couldn't have school there so we had to go back where they were building a high school on. We had to go back up there to have school. So in those days, you never knew what was going to happen either. They got it out, but we never had school there. They were having it in the Grange Hall while they were having the building onto the schoolhouse up there, building the high school on. So they had to make room up there to let us all go back up there. And these poor Sealocks at Lois Hill, we don't know why she did it, but she put that one boy till he had bruises on him. So they took him to the doctor and the board, I guess. So the Hills gave him some money. They were poor, very poor people.
You was a teacher?
Yes, Lois Hill. She was a good teacher. I liked her, but I don't know what she thought this boy did or what he'd done. But she gave him an awful whipping. They got a stick and gave him a whipping. Hell, now you remembered. I don't know if Alice remembered that. But they had to pay them. So that was her last year of teaching. She was teaching in that building, got a fire too. So that was her last year. I think she got married and went west. But I always liked her. She was a good teacher. Avis had some good ones. After our mother died, she went to live with an old maid, Cassie Brown, and Cassie Carson, maybe is called her. And she lived there, and Juanita Hope went to live with the Undertakers. And they were very good to her, though, and real good to her. But of course, Alice and Juanita wanted to come home, so when Dad got married, they did come home. Well, Alice stayed with this old lady, and she'd tell her, "Now we're going to have pickles today." Alice loved pickles. And when she'd bring him those beets, Alice never to this day, I don't think likes beets. Because she'd bring him up there pickled beets. She'd say, "We're having pickles today." And Alice loved milk to drink. You know, she had gallons of it, served out the hogs, I reckon. And she didn't want her to have milk. Yeah, so Alice she was an old maid and didn't know what to do with kids anyway. And you know what Alice did? She played with mice. Oh. She went in the corn crib and played with mice. Yeah. God, I think. Yes, she'll tell you about that. Oh, of course, they were the McNabs were very good to her, and she had anything she wanted about her. she wasn't very old either.
Where'd you go when your mother died?
Well, I had to stay home and do the housework, and Helen and I stayed there, and Helen had to go to the store and work, so I had the cooking to do. I had to learn practically on my own. Grandma Welch came up and helped a little, but my mother died in April, and Grandma Welch died in June, and then my aunt, who we'd always thought so much of, she died in the fall,
Who was that?
November. Eva Allen, Deutsch's sister. She died in the fall, my mother's sister. And that was a blow to us, having 3 deaths. Grandma was always so good to us. She'd come up and she'd cook and show us how to do things, Grandma Welch. Well, yeah. So Dad got married, and the men's store told him not to marry her, but he did, but they couldn't bring her in there to stay with us without marrying her, so he did.
He probably
And-
never married her.
He met her going those trips to Muttenberg, huh?
Yes.
Getting the truck over there.
She was McConnellsville, she worked in there,
Oh.
and he carried the mail.
How long was it after your
He
mother
wasn't
died?
only about, he got married about school time, I think,
Oh,
so you see, it wasn't
not
too
even a
much.
year.
But
No.
April to September.
Yes,
Yeah.
September, I think, he got married. 'Cause we all come home, of course, brought Mildred out there, and Mildred she was the only child, and she wasn't used to being with a bunch of kids. She'd get mad, and her face we'd say her face is red as a turkey. Oh, she would get mad about things, 'cause she'd always had her own way.
Mhm.
So it was kind of interesting. We could depend on Aunt Eva coming up too, but after she died, I don't know whether she died November or what month.
Where'd she die from?
I don't know. She just got sick and died right then, right away.
She wasn't very old.
She
then.
would know. She was a senior in high school. Her and Mildred Allen were staying with Aunt Rennie. She died out at Aunt Rennie's. So that was another blow to us, because we could always tell her things. Oh, we'd get so mad at Mom.
Oh, I bet.
Yes, she'd never have kids like that either. And we'd stand up with each other, you know. Some like hers. Now, Juanita never got over it. No. Avis and I and Helen, we just, forgot it.
Yeah.
Tried to. And Juanita can't to this day, she can't. No. She said she had such a hard time going to high school in Michigan too. They moved up there, and she didn't have clothes and things. Mom didn't want her to have them either. She wanted to go to college. Mom told her and said no way. But I think if she had gumption enough, she'd have went anyway.
Well, Helen got to go.
Yes, Helen went, but it was awful hard for her, because she was down here and they were up there, and she didn't have things either. She didn't have what she's supposed to have. The nuns were very good to her, though. She nearly died. She got blood poison, and those times they didn't have antibiotics, and she just about died. She got an arm just swelled way up. I know Edna was a baby, and we went up to see her. We had friends up there we stayed with.
She finished high school at Reensville?
Yes, she finished there in 29 and went that summer up there. I don't know what time it was she went.
Did all of them get to finish school then except you?
Huh?
Did all of them get to go finish school except you?
No, Avis didn't.
She didn't get to,
She didn't either. 'Cause after they got up there, she had to do the work.
Yeah.
I was had to work to do. Juanita did go to high school, and Mildred did too. I think Mildred graduated up there. But Juanita wanted to go to college, and she just didn't have money to go. But people did, even like Helen, she said she was embarrassed because she didn't have the things other girls did either. See, Dad and Mom, after Mom got to working, it helped, but then Dad wasn't there, he wasn't making that much. I think Mom only got $60 a month when she went down there. Of course, she retired from there.
Well, that was during the Depression.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
during the Depression. Everybody hardly had enough to eat.
Yeah.
That's the reason Dad went into the Democrat Party during Hoover's. He was a Republican. Abbott swears he's always a Democrat, but he wasn't.
No.
He was a Republican until that, and it was terrible. People just didn't have nothing. You can't imagine what it was like. And we lived on a farm, and one summer we didn't have anything in the garden, and I canned whenever I got it. I canned and had things like that. Just nothing. We went down to Charlie Monix's and Mary's and Lizzie's, and they had a box. They bought a box of prunes. It was that long. I don't know what you've seen. I've seen them. We always weighed them out the store. And they got those 5 cents a pound. And eggs was only 8 and 10 cents a dozen. And before that, when we had the store, that they would come to the store with a little bucket of eggs, and they could buy all their groceries, coffee and sugar and tea and a few things like that. But during the Depression, you couldn't sell nothing. Our big trouble was Curtis was teaching. He was getting 800, which was good for those days. But he wanted to farm, and his dad and mother wanted him to stay down there at the farm and live. And he had to buy horses, he had to buy wagon and equipment, and he wasn't really no farmer.
Yeah.
And he was spending our $800 for that instead of spending it on us. We could live well with under 800 because we'd have a good garden. One year we had such a good garden, and we could have canned, and we had fruit and a lot of fruit. But he was spending that on that, and then him and Guy Morrison went and bought cattle, and they couldn't get the money out, and they paid for it. So there he had, that was another thing, tied up money. And when I think it was probably Norman was born, Norman, we had Agnes working for us, Agnes Hughes, and then the bank closed, and we didn't have no money to pay. We couldn't pay her. So her mother come out, and she was her mother was real upset because she couldn't get her money. It was only paying $3 a week, I think, 2 or 3. Now, I found out, I wrote to Mellie, I thought she'd know. Aaron Agnes used to write. And you know, I told you to hunt that mayor husband up. Well, he died, and she is living around with her children. And so I thought maybe when I went back up, I'd have you call some. She will be there, I think, in the summer with the children around there. I don't know if she must have sold her house because she's living with her children. And I suspect she's about my age. So her children are living around there. Call them Roy's and see if they know where she is.
What's your name?
Well, I have to stop and think. I told you that They came from Pennsville. And didn't I tell you his name? Jeff McDaniels.
Yeah.
You found several boys. I don't know how many boys she had. She had some girls and boys. And I figure they're around there. Maybe her great-grandkids, who tell. She's about my age. She stayed with me when she was there when Ed was born, when Norm was born. Took care of me. Wonderful worker. So she's about my age. I got this letter from, I wonder if still got it or not. I wrote to Millie to find out if she knew anything about her. And she said, she sent me her letter, but she didn't have her address. A writer wrote to her. I was reading my diaries. Some of them I can barely read anymore, even started in the 80s, not being able to write. Anyway, if I can find them, I got a lot of. That's Grandpa Smith's house. I may not find it. There, did you see Donna?
Yeah, I saw that.
When anybody goes through my stuff, they're really going to be surprised. I've got everything. They'll have tons of it to throw away. There's a pen. I don't know if that's good or not. Dad's have so much trouble with these pens. Well, anyway, I keep everything. And I haven't got anything organized. Abby's organized all her stuff. Everything's organized, but not mine.
Still taking off clothes.
Oh, it's awful. Well, I saw that letter not very long ago. If I can find it. That ain't it. I don't know what that is. That looks like your writing.
Yeah, I can tell it is from here.
Yeah, well, I can throw that away.
Good, I like old letters.
Yeah. Well, I don't see it. I did have it, but Lord knows where it went to. That cloud. Well, it's just nothing. No. I don't know. I don't know where anything is. That's an old letter Alice's. I'm going to dump it. I don't think that's the one that's got a address in it. I better look and see if there's any addresses. No, that's no address. I can dump it. That's Millie's. Yeah, this must be it. Here it is. You can read this letter. Read it out loud, because I forgot what it said.
Your Christmas card caught up with me here at Mason. I've been here with Arlene since Thanksgiving, but we'll be moving on to Dayton with Dawn for Christmas. We'll be back to my son's the last of January for the rest of the winter. I'm just visiting around in my old age. I kind of like this lifestyle. As long as I keep well enough to wait on myself. Was back on Center Bend to the home place this fall, but they have changed it so much hardly know it. It's a big hog farm now, and they have hundreds of little hog houses all over, and the business is so large they use a plane to move the products.
What was it?
They use a plane to move the products on the
Okay.
hog farm.
Yes.
Can you imagine a big thing like that on such a poor farm, 65 acres when Dad owned it? We'd be rich today if we could have had the foresight back then. I'm still alone, but for the children and families. Love, Agnes.
Yes. Now, this was Millie's letter. I wrote to her about it and put them together and keep it. I'm going to try to call her.
Who's Agnes?
Well, Agnes Hughes. She's Agnes, what did I tell you their names was?
McDaniel.
Daniel?
McDaniels. What in the world is
She
that?
didn't give you an address?
It's not
No,
on it.
she don't give any address. Well, that could be turned out.
Was there on the envelope?
They couldn't find the anybody.
No, she couldn't. She doesn't have it either. So, anyway,
Oh, she sent to Millie?
she wrote to Millie. Her and Millie's been writing. I don't know how they come to instead of me, because I think I wrote to her when she first,
Keep
you know,
it in there.
when we lived. I saw her, I think the last time when they came up, them can throw away. They came up to our store, and we had it there in Hackney. You know, that's been years ago since we had that store. Well, she came there, and we had the store, and I don't think I've seen her since. I wouldn't know if I'd meet her out any place.
Huh.
But she was, anyway, I love that. Now, she was with me the day Ed was born and worked there, and then she was with me when Norm was born, and it must have been after that we had the depression. I mean, we had the depression then, but we couldn't. The bank was closed, and he's born 32, and Curtis couldn't pay her, and her mother got real upset, because I suppose we owed her 2 or 3 weeks' work. She couldn't get her money. So we left the farm, you know, and they left down there too. They sold that farm to Anthony and Ethel. They sold it. And the old folks may have gone to Lowell or someplace with their kids. And I don't know, I think Agnes got married and moved away, and Gertrude was the youngest. She went over there to Cooksville and married a man over there. And she had 2 girls, and then she got cancer and died. And Agnes was real upset. When she died, she was very upset. Well, I was when Helen died too, so I know what she meant. But Gertrude worked the potteries. She married a man over there. And I don't know where Agnes went. She went down, she married this man from over at Pennsville. They went down to, I'll have to think where they went to. And when we went down into Miami for the convention, this woman that was there, she was a millionaire's wife. And she and I sit together, and I knew that Agnes lived there, and she said, yes, they'd worked to school together. I'll have to think what that town was. He was the delegate, and Curtis was alternate down there.
Oak Hill.
Oak Hill, yeah. Well, that's where Agnes lived. And the next time, I hadn't heard from her for years or anything about her. And then I heard that she'd gone to Pataskala. Well, I think one of her kids lived up there, is the reason she went. Now, one of her daughters was a nurse, and I don't know anything from there on. And Millie had been hearing from her. See, they must have been down there when Millie was down at the farm, because her and Millie corresponded for years. I did a few times with her, because I know she wrote and told me about her sister dying and how upset she was about that. See, they lived out there at the hog farm, and we lived there, and Mrs. Hughes was real good to us. She would come out, bring us out some milk, and bring us a bucket of apples, or always was something. She never come without it. She's a wonderful person, a good neighbor. And the other children, they had several children. They were all married. You knew two of them, Cora and Ada Chandler and Cora.
Oh, really?
Yes. What was Cora's last name? Ada Chandler.
And Cora, well, Kyle.
Cora.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spencer's wife.
Yeah.
Yes. Spencer Kyle's wife was Cora. Ada Chandler, wasn't she? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then they had a son, Elmer, who lived down here, go run around here. And
Elmer Hughes.
Elmer, young, they called him young Elmer. The old man was Elmer.
Wasn't Dutch, wasn't
Huh?
it? Dutch Hughes.
I don't know what his name was. They called him young Elmer at home. Ex-same dad. And then young Elmer had a daughter that married a Schulteis that had the store over at Williamstown, across the bridge there, Williamstown. And that's where we bought that table and chairs out there. And then one of those Schulteises married one of the I think she married one of Chop Oman's sons. One of them. I think they always divorced.
Isn't Ada Chandler? Ada?
Yeah. Oh, they're both dead.
Yeah, but wasn't Ada Chandler? Do you know where she lived in Roll?
Yes, down there. Didn't they live on that street? I don't know
Where the
they.
Slutzers lived?
Huh?
Same street.
I
Slutzer?
think they lived that same street.
See,
Slutzer.
if that, I'm getting these Chandlers mixed up, but Ada would be Catherine's grandma.
Who's-
Be my, Catherine Baker, which was my mom's sister's daughter, be
Oh.
my cousin, Aunt Mary. She died when she was just real young, and Catherine was little.
Mhm.
And Catherine's father's name was Chandler, and Ada was her grandmother, and Ada raised her.
Oh, well, you see, Ada raised her, okay.
Yeah,
Ada just had one son, didn't she?
I think I can't think of his name. It was Catherine's
I-
dad.
Oh,
Chandler. That was Catherine's maiden name. And I know she lived. I mean, that's where she lived was with Ada, and most of the time, Ada raised her.
yes. Well, and I don't know if Cora, yes, Cora had a son, didn't she? Spencer Kyle?
Robert
Robert, yes.
and a daughter.
Okay.
Now wait a minute. Robert
Robert died, didn't
and
he?
yeah.
Well-
Did they have a daughter? I'm not sure. I don't know if that daughter or not. But Robert for sure, and he died.
He died. Well, there was Cora and Ada were the older ones, and Mary, who married Reverend Martin, Church of Christ preacher. Now, she was living. And then there was Agnes and, what did I tell you?
Gertrude.
Huh?
Gertrude.
Gertrude. Then there was Raymond, and I think Raymond died. Raymond's wife was a grand. And then there was another, Addith. Addith married Musgrove, married at Musgrove, and he died. And see, I don't know whether they have that. What was wrong with him? He died real sudden. And he had two boys, and one of them's killed in the war, and one of them lives down near Coal Run, I think. Hugheses. Oh,
Well,
yes,
they-
and then there's Elmer. See what a family there was? There was
Yeah.
Cora and Ada and Mary, Agnes and Gertrude and Elmer and Edith and Raymond.
Yeah.
8.
Ate 'em.
And you know what the old man did? Every fall he'd get his corn in, get his work done, farm work done. He went to bed and stayed all winter. Yes. Yes, he stayed all winter. And Ethel said when they went to see him about the house, he was in bed then. Yeah, he stayed all winter.
Did
Poor
he
old
have his work
Mrs.
done,
Hughes
didn't
had to go milk the cow and feed one horses and do all that work. She was a ward from, Miss Hughes was a ward. Well, they had a big family. And a wonderful person she was.
he?
And Agnes, I just loved Sarah because, oh gosh, she was with me twice, childbirth. And she worked out there, but other times for me when it wasn't.
Hmm.
But the last time when she couldn't get her money, she never come back.
Yeah.
She wasn't mad at me, and she wasn't the one that's mad as her mother.
Mm-hmm.
Expect the mother, she probably owed her mother. How her mother lived. She had chickens and the cows, and that was it. He just farmed. According to her, they only had 65 acres.
Yeah.
Well, and that was during the Depression.
Yeah.
And Gertrude liked to dress nice, and she got every penny she could out for her mother. So I brought Edna brought the little.
You think it's too
Thing.
late to cure him of that dirty habit?
They brought it up and we washed them and put them in there, and I'll do that with these.
How long has he been chewing?
All these ever since I know him.
Has he?
You think he started when he was a kid?
Yes, I think so. I don't know.
Well, he isn't gonna quit.
Well,
Oh,
Probably took grandpa's tobacco.
yes, his dad did too. And when we were
gosh.
kids, we knew a girl, Margaret Gannon, she chewed tobacco. And wasn't very old. She come up store, her dad sent her after packs of tobacco. She'd chew half that before she got home.
I
And
just,
her grandmother had to call and tell her to go home. They'd call her grandmother and tell her.
Well, your dad chewed tobacco.
Yes, Dad did too. I don't know if I think he probably chewed till he died, I don't know.
I think
A lot of people did in the old days. Some of them chewed that, what was it, did
Snuff.
Snuff. Rubbed snuff, they called it. But I didn't know people had snuff, but a lot of men chewed tobacco. They didn't smoke, they chewed tobacco.
it's a dirty habit.
It's a dirty habit. Smoking is too.
I guess, smoking is too. It's
Yes.
a filthy habit.
It gets all over the room, you can't. And Mom had all over her nightgown and stuff, and I washed them, and I thought, what in the world's wrong with this water? It turned brown,
Yeah,
and it was from that smoke.
yeah. It does. It's
And
great.
Ronnie and Sherry went smoking again. When I was down there and I said something, oh, she got upset at work. I don't care if she did. That was a terrible thing to do. He didn't have to do it. And thank good for the kids to be around him, and it gets all over the house. Well, they never get out of that house.
It is. It sticks right in there.
Yes, it does. And it was all, you could sit on Mom's wall. You know, in the winter time, the house was all shut up. It was just everywhere.
What do you remember about your Grandpa Welch, Dad's
I don't remember as much him as I do Grandma.
Benjamin?
I don't remember him like I do Grandma. It just seemed like he wasn't always there, and I don't know where he was.
Where do you work?
I don't, he taught school, but I don't know where he's at. I have no idea. And you know, they went up to Ottawa, and that, Dad gave me the Chester door, and it's got it on there. They went up there and lived because Grandma Welch's son was running a bank. Now, why they went up there, that's way up in the high end. Grandma told us that she went up there, and seemed like Ovi and them never talked too much about it.
What do you
So
mean,
their
her son?
kids- Well, Grandma Welch had been married to Blackburn, and they had lived in the West. She had 2 children, one of them's buried out there, and this other, Louis Blackburn, he worked the bank. And Emma tells me that he got in trouble. Somebody took some money out of the bank and they blamed him. Emma didn't think it was him. But anyway, he left the country and they lived in Washington, D.C. And Grandma got a letter, or when Grandma died or something, they got a letter from his wife. And I suppose he probably's dead, or they were wanting to think that she had money, which she didn't want some of her money. Louis. And I don't know if her husband was buried out west or not. That's what I wondered. But Unison, Beulah don't seem to know anything about her. They don't seem to know. And then Grandma always talked, her dad's dead. Grandma, one of their grandmas, whether it was her mother or his, Grandpa's mother, would say, have some applesauce, fresh made today. No, it wasn't made yesterday. Well, anyway, I never knew which Grandma was. And I wondered if it could have been her mother. Grandma, her mother was a Blinker. She was buried out in Pratt, Nebraska. Now, she had 2 sons out west. Grandma Welch had 2 brothers. One of them was Will, the other one was Frank. Well, Aunt Fay wrote to him. To Frank's family. She had pictures, and that when her dad wasn't well, she brought them down there and showed them. Well, I don't know why I wasn't more interested, because I should have found out where Uncle Frank's family lived. And I never found out anything from her, and nobody, they died, supposed to, them old pictures away. May not even have names on them.
The only pictures we've got are, we don't have pictures of your grandparents, do we?
Well,
Catherine.
did you have, I had Grandma
Welch.
Grandma Welch.
Catherine.
Well, I've got,
So,
I have that one.
yes.
Alan.
Yes, you had the Allens, John and Hannah. Her name was,
Grandma.
yeah, Grandma Blinker. You have her picture.
She's the
With-
real stern-looking woman.
Yes.
I got that.
You got a Catherine.
You got Sarah Catherine, too, by herself, kind
Yeah.
of big. She wasn't any taller than I am, I don't
I
think,
got
but
one
she,
of her by herself?
Yeah.
yes,
Grandma's mother.
that's Sarah Catherine, that was Dad's mother. But I don't think we got Benjamin Franklin. I thought one
I
time
never seen
we,
a picture of him.
I thought we had one time, but I can't find it.
Well, those pictures are something to have.
Yes.
Maybe Harry Welch would have
Huh? Oh, no, Harry and them didn't. I don't think they got, I don't think they have anything, no. I can ask him. I'll ask him when I say, I don't hardly ever see him. Edna sees Ruby at the beauty parlor every week.
He was telling me about having pictures of Brock Wilson then
Huh?
in the store when he used to come in the store there.
Brock Wilson.
He said he used
Well,
to take pictures of those people when they come in the store.
see, Ronnie fixed the Clarkin up, and then, Diane took them all out.
Yeah.
She had pictures made off. And Will, Will I've seen. But I've seen Will, but I never seen Frank. And Aunt Fay wrote to Frank as children out in West someplace. And I suppose their kids threw that stuff all away. They wouldn't know who they were and wouldn't care about them. And Aunt Fay brought a whole box of pictures like that down to Dad's, and I didn't pay that much attention. They told us who they were. And then Lord Aunt Fay died, and Lord, if I'd have got a hold of them before they threw them away, well, it didn't.
Any of Aunt Faye's kids living?
She's got 2 grandsons living. Her sons are both dead, and her 2 grandsons living, and one of them worked over there. Janson's wife worked over at school, and Noah told me, and he told me about her, and I said, why, she's my cousin's, and cousin's wife. He said she's a good worker. He also had one of the cooks worked for me when Gerald was born. That was Rex. She was a Thurley, Adeline. And she's 70 years old. And her son, she named her son Gerald Ray after she went and got married. And he's a school teacher. And he's about ready to retire, she told Noah. Says, here he is ready to retire, and I'm 70 and I'm still going. She didn't what you do, she said. So I'm trying to think what her, who the other, what the boy's woman name was. She has a son and a daughter, this boy. Claire's grandson's wife.
Thing out there. Just people in the park